My slides going. Hi, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my slides. Okay, can everybody see that? Awesome. All right. Well, sorry for the delay, but we're going to get our show on the road here. Let's see how much more we have in our time together, and then will help us with moving right along. So thank you for coming to this presentation. This is really a topic that is near and dear to my heart around safeguarding not only the well-being of the young children that we are responsible for, but it's also safeguarding our well-being. Yeah. So let's go ahead and get started. Today we're going to try to answer all of these questions. What does it take to really ensure the well-being of our children? What happens when the adults in charge of their real well-being are hurting? What is burnout? What is compassion? What is its role in reducing and or even preventing burnout? And then what are some tools to cultivate compassion? So by the end of this workshop, my hope is that you'll have a better understanding of what it is to feel the stress and what level of stress you're at that's becoming very unhealthy, and then giving you some tools that you can start to explore and see what's right for you. Okay, so I'm Jude Wolf. I'm a practicing human being. I make mistakes. And so this is where I feel like this is an important piece around compassion and in our jobs as teachers. I'm a mom also. I have 5 children and they're all grown. And so I put on that hat. I'm a partner. I'm a friend. I am an immigrant. I'm a person of color. I love teaching and sharing what I've learned with everyone, and I'm just passing it forward, right? Paying it forward. So thank you for being here and sharing this topic with me. All right. So what role do you play in your community? Maybe you can just put that in the chat so we can understand, where you're at. If you are a student, what area are you trying to study and where you hope to be? So we just want to make sure that I kind of know my audience here. So if you can just put that in the chat, that would be great. I'm sure we have students. Nice, thank you. Early childhood interventionist, thank you. Amaya, yeah, thank you. I put the syllable in the right, or the accent in the right syllable. Thank you. Irma is from early childhood. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, nice. Very nice. Yes. Lovely. Thank you. Yeah, all my SPED folks, thank you. Yeah, I've been doing this for a little over 25 years now. I was a banker before I entered into education, and then did my whole motherhood thing, and then went back and get my master's in credential and then my doctorate in learning and instruction with a concentration in special ed. So thank you. So those of you just joining us, we're just asking folks to put who you are in the community in the chat. Okay, I'm going to move right along here. So I want you just to think to yourself, what inspired and motivate you to be or to study in the area that you are studying? Think about what you enjoy the most about your selected area, and then how do you know that you add value, right? So be thinking about that as we go through the slides, and if there are any questions, well, just go ahead and put that in the chat. Okay, so now imagine a time when it was so difficult for you to answer these questions. And what does that really represent? So I want to share with you this quote by Carver Thomas and Linda Darling Hammond in the report around teachers. And today it says teachers' stress and burnout are the canary in the coal mine, a warning sign of massive school system failure. Stress and burnout are eroding teachers' motivation and performance and the quality of their classroom interactions, relationships with students, commitment to profession. But most concerning is the burnout in this burnout crisis is how it is impacting the quality of children's education. So it is really imperative that we address what this is. Now, for parents, they have the equal amount of stress as well. And so as teachers, we have to think about what is it about parental stress that then impacts the children that they are responsible for? And then how does that stress really involve you, right? So these are some things we need to think about as educators and as we start to manage our own classrooms and start to interact with our parents. So what is burnout really? So the World Health Organization identified 3 pillars. There's that emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and then reduced personal efficacy. It has 12 stages. It's not a binary existence. It's not about, yes, I'm burnt out. No, I'm fine. It really is a spectrum of stages of depersonalization and loss of self-efficacy. And then I want you all to be thinking about these stages as you go through your career in teaching and your ministry and your chosen profession. So it looks like there's this excessive drive, and drive is good, yeah. And so that means it's also focused and motivated, pushing yourself to work harder, and then you start to neglect your personal care, displacement of conflict, like, oh, I'm not going to pay attention to this. I don't really want to, I don't want to talk about it, even if your family's already telling you you're working too much. Then you've got no time for non-related work needs, like your laundry is so piled up you can't even, and there's no food in the grocery in the refrigerator. You've been ordering DoorDash, because you just can't take time to eat. You're not exercising. Those are some things that come up as you get to the higher stages of the 911 situation around burnout. So I'm going to just fast forward that. You start to withdraw. Your behavior changes. You depersonalize. There's an inner emptiness, like, why am I really doing this? What's my purpose? Then you start feeling that depression, and then that mental and physical exhaustion or collapse. Burnout affects your physiological situation here. You've got higher risk of heart disease and obesity, and as much as smoking. The enlarged amygdala, and many of you know that the amygdala is in charge of the fight, flight, freeze system. And so if the amygdala is overworked, there's no learning happening. There's no learning for you. There's no connecting for you. People with burnout, it's twice as more likely to contract type 2 diabetes. And then there's this accelerated biological aging. Sometimes we can be our worst enemy. Mindsets that promote burnout is this hero complex, where it says, oh, this won't happen to me. It just happens to other people. Or that busyness is this badge of honor, right? And some of us in our families, it's like, oh, what do you? Oh, you're so busy. Oh my gosh, I don't have any time for anything else, but I'm just really busy, and people need me, type thing. Some people look at burnout as a weakness. It says, well, if I can't take this on, then I must be weak, or I must not be understanding my work. Or some people also normalize burnout. Oh, this is just part of what I have to do. And as young teachers, I really need you to understand that this is all of this is a myth. There isn't a balanced approach, and we'll talk about that. So think of it, and then which of these do you recognize in yourself? Yeah, and if you'd like to share, you can just go ahead and, for me, I really aspire, I connect more with the business badge of honor. Like, oh, I'm so busy. I need to really, I don't have time. I'm really, all my students are, need me, and I need to just grade one more thing, right? So these are some areas where you can really take a look and do some inner reflection to see, am I contributing to my own burnout? Because that is something that you can control with awareness. Okay. The reality is that many of us think that we're kind of hardwired for this busyness, or the hero complex, or all of these personas that we take on. But honestly, the reality is that the quality of our brain and our behavior is much more trainable and malleable. And I think it's very empowering for all of us to know that we can learn to be in the driver's seat of our own mind. And that we don't have to cave in to societal pressures that are not healthy for teachers. And as you know, teachers are so stressed, and I think teachers are endangered species. We're endangered species out there, and we need to really be protective of our well-being if we really want to make a difference in the future generations. We're in charge of that. So there's a basic theory of change that I want to have you think about and explore, that there's emotions, and you can enter this cycle at whichever point you need, and that you're more connected to. So if you're more of a perception outlook piece, you want to take a look at your attitudes, and then from the attitudes and values, there are emotions, and then there's behavior, and then you go through all of that again, and then you form a habit. And we want to take a look if that habit is pro-social and pro-well-being, or if it's detrimental to your well-being, which then is a domino effect that we present to our teachers, to our fellow colleagues, right, to our parents, to the parents of the children that we're responsible for. So I wanted to show this graphic, again, also done by Imardino Yang and Darling Hammond. And they really took a look at the brains of children from early childhood all the way to early adulthood. And as you can see, in the green areas, there's a lot of interconnections and more efficiencies that need to happen in the early childhood stage. These are the areas where, regions involved in speaking, listening, and understanding language, and social communication is just primed for activity. And as you see, as they get into early adulthood, these connections start to solidify. And why is that important? That we recognize that in the early childhood stages of learning, that we are in charge of making these connections, because exposure to environment and to the people around us contributes to higher order learning and more complex cognitive tasks. So we are in charge of helping that brain develop. So these are called sensitive periods in the brain, and they align with opportunities for learning, and they need supports. So a productive early childhood setting must provide routines, activities, along with positive affirmations and supportive interactions that build that brain architecture in important ways. So the negative effects of stress can be buffered by supportive parenting, relationships, communities, and school programs. And this is what we are in charge of, right? We need to see that we are part of a bigger system. And so we need to see that big picture and that small picture. It's an executive functioning framework as well. So this is how we preserve our well-being. And in the science of well-being, there are 4 areas what we need to pay attention to: awareness, connection, insight, and purpose. Those are the 4 pillars of well-being. In this talk, I want to focus on connection, because that's where compassion starts. Compassion education really is the key. So what is the definition of compassion? There needs to be an awareness that there's a recognition of suffering. Now, suffering doesn't have to be big capital S, all caps suffering, but it could be feeling anxious. It could be feeling depressed. It could be a loss of a loved one. It could be not knowing, not feeling efficacious in your work. And then, and you seeing that in yourselves and others. And then there's the connection where there is a feeling of concern for others and for yourself. Not this burnout, not those four kind of mindsets that lead to burnout, but there is this feeling of concern and the desire to relieve suffering, which is insight. Then there's this purpose that you have this willingness to act to alleviate that suffering. And then there's a neurobiological impact where you get the sense of warm glow. So people often ask me, what's the difference between empathy and compassion? We need empathy for sure. And this is a study by Singer and Klemecki and the Max Planck Institute in Germany. And you definitely need empathy for sure, because what is empathy? It's the resonance of emotions, positive, negative, or neutral. But compassion is specifically geared to suffering. It's one of those negative emotions that are related to suffering. And then if you learn how to cultivate compassion, the result is you get more feelings of in the positive trajectory of the emotion spectrum, which then leads to the physical good health. And then your approach is more pro-social, taking down the barriers and building those bridges to connect. Whereas if you only look at empathy and you only look at the connections with the emotions and seeing the suffering of other people and knowing, implementing those 5 steps, then you tend to get a lot more negative feelings, i.e. stress, then it leads to poor health, burnout, and then you start to withdraw. Does this make sense? Yeah, just give me a thumbs up if I'm going too fast. I'm trying to make sure that we go through everything here. So there are many studies that have been, it's just burgeoning. You can look at self-compassion as protective factors for parents of children, and our studies show that the anxiety and stress levels of parents are higher for ones who have disabilities. And in the abstract of this paper, if you take a look, it says self-compassion was found to predict psychological well-being, lower distress, and lower parenting stress. Another interesting, very interesting study is done by Julie Palmentine at University of Wisconsin-Madison, and they train parents on this cognitive-based compassion training, and what they and measured cortisol, the stress hormone levels of themselves and their children. And what you can see in the results here is that there's an intervention group and a control group. This first is parent hair cortisol concentrations, where you take a look at the control group had higher cortisol levels in the parents, and then the intervention group is lower. But what's more interesting is that when they measured their children's hair cortisol levels, the group that had been gone through the intervention, the compassion-based training intervention, if you look at this, the blue line, the pre-intervention was higher. These are the stress levels of the children. And that post-intervention, after that compassion training, the cortisol levels of the children went down, as opposed to the ones in the control group. So fascinating work. And so for teachers here, you can take a look at that. There's just so much emphasis now on how we can help compassion mind training for school teachers and support staff to reduce burnout. And in here again, it says that this feasibility study demonstrates that there are benefits of compassion mind training in educational settings. Again, mindfulness and compassion as key factors of improving teachers' well-being. There is now a handbook for burnout for experts. And so you can see that there's a lot of interest and concern to help teachers and parents not burn out. So just wanted to talk to you about best known compassion trainings. These are all, I am trained in compassion cultivation training, and that's out of CCARE at Stanford University. And then there are all of these other compassion training, compassion focused trainings that you can partake in. And most of these types of intervention emphasize the empathy inducing, like you can connect with people who are suffering, but then there's a change in the motivation that lead to more compassion versus empathy distress. There's an experience-based and expression-based, which means you're going to tune in and you're going to learn how to tune in without being lost in that hurricane of cascading stress. So the program that I'm trained in and I teach is called Compassion Cultivation Training. It's an 8-week personal professional development course that I put on, and I do that over the summer, and I have teacher training as well. So the emphasis on this one is that not so much on this training, but it is a skill that can be learned, right? Much like how we teach kids to read. Here's all the research on CCT. And honestly, here's, when we take a look at how we train our perspective, it's a mindset piece where we try to increase our compassion for ourselves and others, and that the willingness for us to receive compassion. We also then, teach you, and we learn the skills of mindfulness, which is just this mindful attention to, without judgment, to whatever's occurring in us. We see some self-reported increased elevation of mood, and more enlivened and expanded toolkit for emotion regulation. And as you know, when children come into our classroom, and their parents do too, especially if you're working with parents with special education, students with special education needs, we have to hold that space pretty steady, and so that they can come and share with us what their needs are, and we're able to listen more. And so this is what happens in our classroom, because all our students that are in our care, and all the parents that are in our care, want us to listen. And sometimes we have to become the investigator, and because they don't have the vocabulary sometimes to talk to us about what their needs are. And so as teachers, we sign up for that. We teach you how to teach reading, writing, math, and playfulness, and building all of that. But we also need, as a higher education institution for teacher preparation, need to teach you how to preserve and how to listen well without being lost in the suffering. You learn how to trust yourself and then commensurately, the parents learn to trust you. And then there's this overall cycle of interdependence where we carry the load, and the load doesn't become as heavy. The reality here is that when we're feeling safe and love and security, then we're changing the chemistry in our cells so that we can, the cellular change, so that we can actually promote growth and restoration. And that's what we want for you. That's what I want for you, for our parents, and for our children, the children that we're in charge of. And this is a family journey. It is a journey that gives us a lot of twists and turns along the way. that we can learn to be resilient in the face of suffering and in the face of challenges. And we need to trust that with the challenges that we can grow stronger and bounce back in a shorter amount of time. And here are the references and resources that you can use to explore. And obviously, I'm happy to be of service to you guys as well. Wow, I went through that pretty fast there. I don't know if people have any questions at all. I love this topic. So, and I've actually done these talks in, more than 20 minutes. Any questions that you guys want to ask specifically to your situation, or don't be shy. How many of you are already in the classrooms? Tiffany? Okay. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. And do you see suffering from your parents, or are there concerns, and what issues are they typically asking for or wondering about?
Typically for families that enter my classroom, since I work with the preschool age, some of them are just finding out that their kids have autism just through the intake, and it's the first
Yeah.
time. So there's a lot of question of what did I do to have my child be like this?
Yeah.
Questions of what's going to happen to my kids.
Yes.
A lot of those anxiety, unsure of future kind of questions.
Yes. Yes. Yes, it's exactly. They're just entering that journey with you. And you and the early childhood, I mean, we always think that early childhood teachers and kindergarten teachers are the best because, you learn everything in kindergarten, is that what typically they say. But I really think it's, even in preschool, I sent all my children, I have 5 children, right? I sent all of them in parent co-op, nursery schools. And so it's really important to address those. Anyone else?
I think very similar to Tiffany. A lot of families that I work with already have like an older student with a disability, and then so they're now like introducing new children into their lives. So they're having babies, and maybe that's their second child. And I think I see a lot of like stress around that, about like parenting a child with a disability and a newborn baby.
Yeah.
It's like having to balance those things.
Yes. The multiple stressors. Yeah. Yeah. And does anybody feel like at the end of the day, you're like, oh my God, why do I feel so tired? Right. Or, and so I think this is the reason for this talk, because sometimes we don't know, we take it in and we never really realize why we're so tired. Yeah. And so, compassion. I mean, I would not even evangelize or even talk about compassion if I didn't die and then came back to life with it, especially, as a teacher, as a mother, as a human being that go through a lot of life's curves and curveballs. I took the compassion cultivation class myself. And then as a student, and then when the teacher training came up, I was number 1 in line to sign up for it, because I felt like I knew that in my mind that special education teachers, no matter what level you're at, you need this. You need this education. Otherwise, you will burn out. You need to know the tools just as much as you need to know how to deal with the IEPs, just as much as you need to learn how to do, reading, writing, and really creating the environment for play for our children, we need to teach you how to take care of yourselves, how to have the compassion. And there's more about compassion, right? Compassion isn't just about kindness and common humanity and mindfulness, but there's this sense of protecting, providing, and motivating yourself. Those are all self-compassionate acts that you can provide for yourself that can help you be resilient and be aware. And so if we go back to those 4 pillars, the self-awareness, the connection, the rest, rejuvenation, all of those are really important components to your well-being. Right? And this is great. They're like your presence here. Some of you, it's probably just, this is a piece of homework that you have to do for your academics, but it's also, a way to motivate your purpose, right? This is why I'm here. No one said it was going to be easy, but if I'm with a community that is of like mind, shares the same values and goals that I have. If we go back to the slide, the second slide or the, the 5th slide, where why did we choose to be a teacher? What do I enjoy most about being a teacher? How do I know I add value? If we can answer that without hesitation, then we're not burning out. Yeah. Okay. What other thoughts? I don't know, Tiffany, I don't know how much more time we have, but
we have about 5 minutes, and then we go on break, and then we will gather back up in the main Zoom link.
Okay, great. We have 5 minutes, y'all. Come on, share with me.
Well, I remember in the first couple slides you had asked, like, why did you choose, this path or this career? And I wrote down energy because I love just the energy that kids have. It's never a boring day, but sometimes the energy can also, be the cause for my burnout because I just constantly have to be on, like my youngest client is 4 months and then my oldest is 34 months. So I'm like seeing the whole spectrum and just realizing how they feed off our energy. So I always have to be on. So then by the end of the day, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need alone time. You know what I mean? So that's kind of why I chose your Zoom too, was to just hear about burnout. So I learned a lot about self-compassion today, thanks to you.
Hello, I have a question. As we it seems like what I guess got from your presentation is as teachers, we need to be aware of our own to be able to also translate that to the child as we work with our students.
Yes.
And so my question is what does a teacher do when she experiences burnout? Is it on the daily, I experience the exhaustion at the end of the day. And no, I'm not blaming the students I work with because they don't have the language to express how they feel, but I do feel like I just need to sleep, or I need to but how does someone, I don't know, take care of that in a more practical way?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You should take my class this summer because I always invite teachers to come and take the class. I teach every summer. And I just want to share really quickly this slide right here, right? Everyone can see that. So Cynthia, you asked about how do you know, right? So the awareness in your body that says, boy, I'm really tired, right? Then what happened? And that refers to that insight too, where are your emotions? And, what am I thinking? Oh my God, this parent was just such a pain or whatever, right? And it's like, okay, then you start to think, there is this common humanity piece around, wow, they're suffering too. And the knowledge that you're not the one causing the suffering, and that the children aren't coming because they don't have self-regulation, right? You know, we think about executive functioning, we're in charge of, we're the ones. And so when you are not aware of where you're going, the best thing pragmatically is to pause, right? Pause and then take that breath of, I'm not just saying sit and breathe because it's so cliche, right? But when you think about the vagal nerves that really innervate everything in your body, that is the first thing that we need to do, is to breathe and then say, and then how do we connect to other people? And then those are the 5 things, like, okay, so who do I call? You know, what do I watch? Do I go play with my dog? Do I go for a walk in nature? There's the science of awe now in the Greater Good Science Center in Berkeley by Dr. Keltner. Amazing work that they've done there too. And that's how you can cultivate and replenish, you know, the fuels that are being, you know, used up. So yeah, I mean, it's a lot. And it's pausing, right? And you know, you're the only one who knows how much your bandwidth is. That's why this is an important, and my bandwidth could be different than Tiffany's, than yours. Yeah. So you need, that's insight and awareness. So knowing what your bandwidth is, and then saying, okay, I need to be on do not disturb at this moment, right? And really protecting that, and really protecting that without feeling guilt, without feeling like, you know, watch out for those negative thought patterns that are, I call saboteurs, you know, and that's the mindset. That's the mindset. It's not easy. Listen, I should say the, the concept is easy, practice is hard, right? And that's why we need community. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is just something that I'm so passionate about, that I feel like this is why I'm, you know, I'm back at the universities, because I feel like there's no compassion in your teacher training programs, you know, but I teach at, you know, I teach classes in the mild moderate support needs program, and I really do try to, you know, infuse these principles in all my classes to my teachers.
Thank you, Dr. Wolf. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, I just wanted to ask, like, how do we get like information about the class that you teach over the summer?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I will, so just ask the special ed department and I'll go ahead, and I haven't put the flyer on there yet, but you know, I offer it free for the teachers, because you know, if you go to Stanford, it's $395. It's crazy. So I offer it free for our teachers. So yeah. Yeah. Yeah, just you guys all just join. It's fascinating, and we create a community around it. Thank you, Tiffany. You're just such a wonderful co-facilitator and co-host here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. No, this is a great presentation. I know this is all being recorded, so I'm sure we'll have access to it later. And then I think we have about a 10-minute break now, 10 to 15-minute break, and we'll see everybody at 10:30 at the main session.
It's the same link again?
I believe so.
Okay, 10:30. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you.
Well,